Alright, in this tutorial you are going to learn about levitation photography. This technique consists of taking one picture where you are sitting on a stool or maybe a trash can or a ladder or something, and then taking another picture where the stool and yourself are not in the frame. And then what we're going to do is combine those two pictures in Photoshop, and it will come out looking like you are floating in midair. Now when you take the two shots, you're going to want to make sure that you're taking them in manual mode with manual focus and also manual white balance as well. That makes it so that both exposures have the same settings. So here's some examples. I was sitting here, I added the shadow later down here, and I'll show you how I did that in another example. Here's another one. I'm just in front of my house. I got my hand on the window there, and I was just standing on the stool. And then I erased the stool later. Here's another one. This is probably my favorite one I've done. Now this was taken where there was a flash, a portable flash with an umbrella, a white shoot-through umbrella attached to it. And that was about right here, the umbrella was. And my brother was holding it to the left of me, but I just erased him later in Photoshop because it was pure dark, so it's easy to erase something that's pure dark. So he was just beside me holding that umbrella up right here, right on top of me, and the stool was below me, and there was no problems with the shadows with that because the stool was right below me and the light was right above me. And this was at nighttime, and this is the result. It came out pretty sweet. Here's another one where I'm just in my hallway, and I was on a little stepping stool. You can get as low to the ground as you want to. I've even used basketballs before, where I had both my hands on two different basketballs, and also my feet were on the stepping stool, so it looked like I was doing like a push-up in midair or something like that. So you can get creative and use any sort of height you want to with this. And also long hair looks cool when it's like just kind of falling down to the ground. That's always a cool effect. And I'm also going to be showing you how you can make yourself look like you're floating way above the air, like where you wouldn't be able to get a stool up there. So I'll show you how to do that in this tutorial as well. So let's start out with this example. The reason why I'm using this as an example is because this was taken inside, and we can see that this picture has shadows on the wall. So I'm going to show you how to get rid of the stool and also preserve the shadows once you get rid of the stool. We're actually going to make new ones, but they're going to look just as good as the original ones. So the first thing you're going to want to do is drag and drop two photos into the same Photoshop document. You can see here that I have two layers. I have the background layer, which is just your scene without you or the stool in it. And then I have another picture with the stool and also me sitting on it. And again, these were taken in manual mode and manual white balance, manual focus. So once you got your pictures done, put them in the Photoshop document, and what we're going to do is we are going to make a selection around myself, or your model. So I'm going to grab the quick selection tool right here and just quickly make a selection. I'll refine this in a second. You're going to want to make sure you have the add to selection symbol selected for that, so we can click and keep adding more to the selection over time. Alright, that's a quick, good enough selection. Actually, I did forget this part right here. I'm just gonna make sure you grab the minus selection symbol so you can delete and take away the selection that you did not want. I'm just doing that right here. And got that, and I'm just going to quickly add this selection back on to make it look good. Okay, so once you have your selection of the person, you can do this with the pen tool or the quick selection tool, whatever tool you want to use. You can then zoom out by pressing Control minus, Control plus, whatever you want to do. And then make sure that the layer is selected here, and then click the layer mask button. Now, that makes it so that it's just this is showing up in the layer, and the background layer is the background layer. So, what we're going to do now actually is, if you actually zoom in here, you can see that it's not absolutely perfect. For example, my nose right here, the selection kind of got chopped off. So what we're going to do is click on the layer mask here and grab the brush tool, and we're just going to fill this area in with white to reveal everything there. I'm just going to make a quick selection at the top of my body just to make sure that we have everything in there. But the bottom I'm going to leave as is, and this is why. You can see that my arm and kind of my fingers are more kind of jaggedy. That's what the selection looks like. In order to fix that, you would just want to go in here with the pen tool, make a quick selection, and then fill that selection in with black, and you could then smoothen up your arm or whatever you wanted to do. But that's how you get yourself levitating. Now we're going to make it look like we're floating. So we are going to duplicate this background layer. The reason why we're duplicating it is because just in case we mess up, we will have this backup copy right here, and we can go back to that copy and start over again when we start making our shadows. So right now let's click on the top layer and let's grab the burn tool. And we're going to select the midtones, and we're going to keep the exposure on 48%. And for right now, we're going to have protect tones on. So now, and also you're going to want to make sure that the hardness is appropriate. So with the original picture, the shadows were pretty soft. And I'll just duplicate that for you and delete the layer mask so you can see what the original looked like. It looked like this. You can see if you zoom in, the shadows are really soft. They're not harsh or anything. So we're going to also want to make soft shadows in our picture. So we got a soft brush. We got a big, pretty decent brush size. So now we're just going to burn in the shadows. We're going to go back to the original, look at it, and we can see that there's a line here, and then the shadow just kind of goes down like this, and then there's a big blotch of shadow right here. So we're going to duplicate that same thing basically. So let's turn that layer off, go back to the background layer, and draw in a shadow just like that using the burn tool. And then going to do that same thing where we make that big blotch, and just like that. And then we can go back to the original, and we can see that it's a little bit darker. So we're just going to make this darker. Just like that. And if you go back, it looks pretty much the same, except this should be a little bit darker, but it really doesn't need to be that dark, but hey, we might as well make it that dark. Just want to keep going back and forth until it looks good. This one, I can see there was a little shadow right here, and that's basically it. So we basically copied the shadow there, and it looks just like it would have. You can also add other shadows if you wanted to, like if I wanted to add one underneath the leg there, I could. Although that wasn't in the original, so I'm just not going to do that. But you always can if you want to. So that's that. That's how you make a levitation picture, including shadows. Now if it's a really simple levitation photo where your arm isn't going in front of the stool and there's no shadows or anything, you can just bypass making that selection with the quick selection tool. You don't even have to do that. All you got to do is select the layer with the stool, create a layer mask on it, grab a black brush, and make sure it's the size and the hardness are appropriate. And then all you gotta do is paint in black over the stool on the layer mask. Make sure the layer mask is selected. To select the layer mask, make sure to just click on it once and it will be selected. Some people, they'll click on the actual layer and start painting in stuff and they're going, why is this not working? The reason why is because you did not have the layer mask selected. So make sure that's selected. One other thing I want to show you really quick is that sometimes you will accidentally have a very small selection made, such as this one right here, and it might be like only a pixel large or something, and then when you try to paint in something on the layer, it won't work, and that's because this little dot is selected. That's the only thing that's selected, so we can paint inside the dot, but nothing else will work by painting outside of it. So if you are painting in stuff and nothing is showing up, that is probably why. So in order to get rid of that, just grab the selection tool and just click once without dragging your mouse, and it will deselect your selection. So let's go back to the layer mask, and all you got to do is just paint in black over this. And now when you get up close, you'll just want to reduce the size significantly and increase the hardness, and then that will just give us the option to get in here and erase this stool just like that. And this is only an example. I would do this a little bit better if I was going to publish this image or something like that. So just doing it really quick here so you get the idea, and then there you go. Now you'll see it might be kind of rough somewhere, so what we can do is decrease the hardness, increase the size, and just go over it one more time right below just to soften everything up, and there you go. And then also we could go back and create a shadow by using the burn tool just like that, and there you go. There's your shadow. And now we're going to show you how to make yourself look like you are way up in the sky if you want to. Now this trick is, it's kind of required that you can jump over a horizon. That makes it really easy. So what we're going to do is make a selection. Just going to grab the quick select tool. Go to make it a really small one so it's accurate. And I'm just going to select my body here. This was a big peak in Oregon where I live. I was just jumping over. So we have our selection. Now let's, duplicate the layer and press Control X. Now what that did is it just cut myself out of the frame. And now when we press Control V, it's going to paste myself back in. And we can now move this way up here if we wanted to. But how do we fill in that hole? Well, a super easy way to do it would just be to select the layer, grab the clone stamp tool over here, press Alt, and then click on a color that you want that's similar to the color that should be in there. And also make sure that your opacity is on 50%, actually 100%. So we're going to Alt click, and then we're going to click again in this area. And you can see that I'm just filling in that space with the same color. And it's going to want to alt click several times just to get that all filled in. And that is looking pretty good. So now check this out. Look at it. It looks like I'm floating. It looks like I'm just jumping and flying way up here, and I can place this anywhere I want, and it looks pretty realistic because the lighting conditions are the same thing that would have been there in real life. If I was jumping this high, the lighting on my body would be exactly the same as it was if it was down here. So now it does kind of look cheap when you do it way up here. I mean, because there is the bright clouds that were around me, and you can actually see if you zoom in that the pixels are a little bit brighter on the edges. So it can look fake if your selection isn't carefully cut out enough. But if it's down here, you're pretty safe and it looks pretty real, and you can place it anywhere you want. I like placing it just right about there, so it still has that hint of realism, but it still looks like he's jumping really high to begin with. And after that, you can go to Layer, Flatten Image, OK. And then one other thing that's kind of cool that you can do is warp the entire image. So we can select the whole thing and then press Control T, right click, and then press warp right here. And what I like to do is kind of with horizon pictures, sometimes I just like to drag and drop the edges of the photograph down, and it kind of makes it look like it's a fisheye photo. So I'm just going to do that right now, just like that. There we go. Press enter to apply that, and bam, it looks like a fish. It looks like a world, kind of, or a fisheye photo, however you want to look at it. And also we could crop it to a square if we so desired. So that's how you do levitation photography. Have fun with that. That's one of my favorite techniques, and it's also one that is actually very aesthetic and also kind of shocking when you show someone this.